Monday, 13th of October of 2025. Welcome to the podcast of Noticias El Salvador SV, in this space of conversation and reflection, where we explore together topics of current events of El Salvador and the world. Support us through the PayPal, the link you will find it in the description of the content of this podcast, or through the transfer of Satoshi, the QR Bitcoin. And regarding the Chivo Wallet, the wallet of the government of El Salvador, it is no longer possible to send funds to other wallets of Bitcoin. According to reports, have much care with your money. The responsibility of the government of El Salvador in the Chivo Wallet, your contributions you can make them by means of another wallet, Chivo Wallet no longer serves. For that there is no official position, as always, of this case that surely will make noise after. Wow, okay, that introduction itself is, well, it's pretty heavy stuff right out of the gate. It really sets the stage for our deep dive today. We're here to sift through, the critical information that affects people day to day, both here and globally.
Absolutely. And that warning about the Chivo wallet, that's not just a footnote. It's potentially a massive development we have to start with.
Exactly. Our mission today is to take these sometimes complex updates, everything from how digital money works or doesn't work, to some really intense international events, and just try to make sense of it all for you, give you the context.
And starting with the Chivo wallet is crucial because the reports surfacing, well, they aren't just about technical issues. They seem to hit right at the core promise of why Bitcoin was adopted in the first place.
What do you mean by core promise?
Well, you introduce something like Bitcoin, talking about financial freedom, right? About being able to control your own money, move it anywhere instantly without asking permission. That freedom to send it wherever you want. That's kind of the whole point.
Okay, so let's nail down the specific report that's causing all this concern. Because if this is accurate, it really does change things for anyone using that wallet. This report came out today, didn't it?
Yes, fresh information. And it centers specifically on this ability, or rather the lack of ability, to move funds out of the Chivo system to other Bitcoin wallets.
Can you share the exact wording? Because the details here are critical.
Yeah, let me read it directly. The report states, con respecto a la Chivo Wallet, la billetera del gobierno de El Salvador, ya no se puede mandar fondos a otras wallets de Bitcoin según nos reportan. Tener mucho cuidado con sus dinero con responsabilidad del gobierno de El Salvador en la Chivo Wallet. Ya no sirve para eso. No hay posición oficial como siempre de este caso que va a dar que hablar en un futuro no muy lejano.
Okay, wow. And the key phrase there for anyone who follows crypto or even just uses the wallet is, ya no se puede mandar fondos a otras wallet de Bitcoin. It's no longer possible to send funds to other Bitcoin wallets.
Precisely. That's the bombshell line. According to these reports, external transfers out are blocked.
So for listeners who maybe aren't deep into cryptocurrency, can you break down why this specific restriction is such a big deal? Why does it matter if you can't send your Bitcoin from Chivo to, say, another wallet app or a hardware wallet?
It fundamentally changes the nature of what you hold. It's about the difference between having access to something and truly owning it.
Access versus ownership. Explain that.
Okay, think about it like this. When you hold Bitcoin in your own private wallet, what we call a non-custodial wallet, you possess the private keys. These keys are like the secret password that proves ownership and gives you total control.
Right. Only you have them.
Exactly. You, and only you, decide what happens to those funds. You can send them anywhere in the world to any Bitcoin address anytime. No bank approval needed, no government permission. That's the autonomy, the freedom that cryptocurrency promises.
So if Chivo Wallet, which is officially the government's Bitcoin wallet, stops you from sending funds out maybe to your own secure storage or an international exchange, or even just to pay a friend who uses a different wallet, what does Chivo become then?
It essentially becomes a centralized, sort of walled garden, a custodial ecosystem, what crypto folks often call a closed loop.
A closed loop, meaning the money can only move inside that specific system.
Largely, yes. The funds might still be labeled Bitcoin within the app, but your ability to use them freely, like actual Bitcoin, is now restricted by the entity running the wallet, in this case, the government via Chivo.
The second you lose the ability to withdraw your assets to a place where you control the keys, you lose that core autonomy. The funds are then held, as that initial warning stated, con responsabilidad del gobierno de El Salvador, under the responsibility of the government.
Hearing that phrase again, with responsibility of the government in this context, it suddenly sounds less like they're protecting your money and more like they're controlling it.
That's the implication, isn't it? It suggests they are managing it for you in a custodial sense. If the system is indeed closed off, like this report suggests, then the only way to get value out might be through channels they approve or control, maybe converting back to dollars within their system or spending only at Chivo accepting merchants.
So it limits the Bitcoin-ness of the Bitcoin in the wallet. Absolutely. If this restriction is real and intentional, it drastically reduces the utility. It changes Bitcoin from this global permissionless currency into something more like an internal digital token or a voucher system managed entirely by a central authority. And that, frankly, runs completely counter to the whole spirit and likely the letter of the Bitcoin law that was passed.
And then there's the other part of the report. No hey position official como siempre de este caso. No official statement, as usual.
Yes, and that lack of official explanation is a huge problem in itself.
Why is the silence so damaging here?
Because when you make such a fundamental change to how a nationally adopted currency tool works, especially one tied to Bitcoin, you have to explain why. Is it a temporary technical glitch, a security measure because of some threat, or is it a permanent policy change?
Right, without answers.
Without answers, people assume the worst. The silence breeds immediate distrust. Users start wondering, wait, can I actually get my money out if I need to? Is my financial freedom being quietly taken away? It raises serious questions about transparency, especially concerning a major pillar of the national digital strategy.
So the takeaway for anyone using Chivo is intense caution right now.
Definitely. Until there's clarity, this reported inability to send funds externally has to be treated as a critical operational risk. It's the most serious update for users today.
Okay, it's quite a start. This whole theme of authority, control, and the friction that comes with it.
Yeah.
It actually serves as a pretty stark transition to our next topics.
Yeah.
We're shifting from digital control to physical confrontations involving state authorities.
Yeah, we're moving from the abstract world of digital wallets to very real, very tense situations unfolding on the streets, particularly in the US.
Let's begin in Chicago, Brighton Park neighborhood, October 13th, so just today. Tensions around federal immigration enforcement seem to have boiled over into a violent incident.
That's right. It involves a woman named Miramar Martinez. She's 30 years old, a U.S. citizen living in Chicago.
And she was protesting.
Yes, she was reportedly protesting a major federal immigration enforcement campaign called Operation Midway Blitz. This operation targets undocumented immigrants and had apparently already created a lot of friction and ongoing protests in the area.
Okay, so she's protesting near an Immigration and Control Enforcement ICE operation. What happened next?
This is where the story gets really contested. There was a confrontation involving Department of Homeland Security, DHS, vehicles.
And the official DHS account is?
DHS claims that Martinez used her vehicle to ram their vehicles. They also claim she was armed, and because of this perceived threat, their agents fired in self-defense. She was shot 5 times.
5 times. That's significant force. But you said the story is contested.
Highly contested. Martinez's lawyer presents a completely different sequence of events, and they claim to have body camera footage to back it up.
Body cam footage. What does the defense say it shows?
According to the defense lawyer, the footage allegedly captures a DHS agent saying something provocative to Martinez before the situation escalated. The phrase cited is, "Haz algo, pera,"
which translates to,
"Do something, Brisa."
Wow. Okay. That changes the dynamic considerably, if true.
Enormously. The defense claims that after this alleged provocation, it was the agent's vehicle that rammed Martinez's vehicle, and then the shooting occurred.
So if the defense version is accurate based on this alleged footage, it flips the narrative completely. It wouldn't be self-defense against an aggressor, but potentially
an escalation, maybe even entrapment or manufacturing a justification for using force. That phrase, "Haz algo, pera," if it was indeed said and captured on video, suggests intent. It suggests they might have been trying to provoke a reaction from her.
This whole incident now hinges on that body cam footage and who initiated the physical confrontation. What happened to Miramar Martinez?
Despite being shot 5 times, reports say she was hospitalized in stable condition and, remarkably, discharged the same day. However, she is now facing federal charges for assaulting a law enforcement officer.
So the legal battle is just beginning. Was anyone else involved?
Yes, there was another person, Anthony Ian Santos Ruiz. He was reportedly driving another vehicle involved in the incident and was also detained by authorities at the scene.
This case really highlights that volatile mix. Federal operations like Midway Blitz, community resistance, and the critical role of video evidence in challenging official accounts of use of force.
Absolutely. And it provides a stark contrast to another incident involving law enforcement use of force that same day, this time with the LAPD in California.
Okay, let's shift to Los Angeles. What happened there?
This involved a 22-year-old man named Brian Guzman. He was shot and injured by LAPD officers.
What led to the shooting in this case?
The circumstances seem perhaps less ambiguous based on initial reports. Police were responding to calls about Guzman threatening multiple people with a large kitchen knife.
A knife threat is obviously very serious. Was there body cam footage here too?
Yes, and reports indicate the body camera video shows Guzman actively ignoring officers' commands to drop the weapon. He then apparently brandished the knife, presenting a clear and immediate threat.
So the officers fired?
They did. Guzman was injured but survived. He was taken to the hospital, also in stable condition.
So comparing the two, Chicago seems complex, politically charged, with conflicting narratives hinging on alleged provocation and who hit whom first. Los Angeles appears, at least based on these initial details, more like a direct response to an immediate, visible threat with a deadly weapon.
That seems to be the key difference in the escalation profile, yes. The LA incident involved an overt, ongoing threat to public safety and the officers themselves. The Chicago incident is clouded by the protest context, the alleged verbal provocation, and the dispute over the vehicle collision sequence.
Both incidents, though, happening on the same day, underscore this ongoing tension around state authority and its use of force, whether it's federal agents during an immigration crackdown or local police responding to a street threat.
Definitely. It connects back, in a way, to the theme of control we started with. Control over assets, control over movement, control over public spaces.
Okay, let's pivot now from these domestic security issues to a major, potentially historic claim on the international stage. We're talking about the Middle East.
Yes, a really significant development reported on October 13th. Former U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in Tel Aviv.
And received quite the welcome, apparently.
A red carpet welcome received by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The stated purpose of the visit was to finalize a peace agreement between Israel and Hamas.
Finalize an agreement. And Trump made a pretty bold declaration.
Extremely bold. Speaking in the Knesset, Israel's parliament, he declared, quote, "The war has ended."
The war has ended. Just like that. Did he provide any specifics, particularly on Hamas's stance?
He did. He claimed that the Hamas movement had agreed to comply with the crucial part of the proposed peace plan: disarmament.
Hamas agreeing to disarm. That would be monumental. That's always been a massive obstacle.
Exactly. If that claim is accurate and holds, it signifies a potential paradigm shift in the region, possibly ending decades of active conflict. But alongside these high-level political declarations, there was a very human element playing out.
The prisoner and hostage exchange.
Yes. This was happening concurrently. Hamas reportedly delivered the last 20 living hostages they were holding in Gaza. They confirmed they held no more captives.
A huge moment of relief for those families.
Absolutely. And on the Israeli side, there were reports of celebrations, people in the streets with banners specifically praising Trump for securing the hostages' release.
And what about the Palestinian prisoners being released from Israeli jails?
Simultaneously, the first group of Palestinian prisoners were seen exiting the Israeli offer jail as part of the agreement. So you have this moment where families on both sides are experiencing the relief of reunification.
But was the experience symmetrical?
Well, that's where the complexity comes in. The reports highlight a significant difference. While Israelis were openly celebrating the return of their people and thanking political figures,
yes,
Israel reportedly prohibited Palestinians from celebrating the release of their prisoners.
Prohibited celebrations, even as part of a peace deal.
That's what the reports indicate. It creates this stark asymmetry right at the moment of supposed peace. Even if the act of fighting stops, this suggests the underlying controls and restrictions on Palestinian life and expression remain firmly in place. It shows the claimed peace might be more about cessation of hostilities than about genuine parity or shared relief.
So, a declared end to war, but the lived experience of that peace seems immediately unequal. That's sobering.
It is. It shows that peace agreements are incredibly complex, and the reality on the ground can be very different from the headlines.
Okay, let's bring our focus back home to El Salvador. While there are claims of peace abroad, there are some immediate public safety dangers here that need urgent attention, particularly on the roads.
Yes, the reports from October 13th paint a really concerning picture about dangerous driving, especially driving under the influence. It seems to be a persistent, serious threat.
Let's talk specifics. First, a professional driver.
Right. Vladimir Ernesto Orellana. He was driving a public bus, Route 79. He was arrested for dangerous driving while intoxicated.
A bus driver? Where did this happen?
On the Los Toros Highway, which is a major route at kilometer 18, he actually struck a piece of road equipment, one of those digital signs used for road work.
And how intoxicated was he?
His breathalyzer test showed 30 degrees of alcohol. Now, any level is unacceptable for someone driving a bus full of passengers, but wait till you hear the next case.
Okay, this one is worse.
Dramatically worse. We have Jose Claudio Melara. He was caught in the Colón district, out in La Libertad Este. He was riding a motorcycle.
And his alcohol level?
His breathalyzer registered 331 degrees. 331 degrees.
331. Let's pause on that. For listeners, especially internationally where scales might differ, how extreme is that compared to the bus driver's 30 degrees?
It's astronomically high. We're talking potentially more than 10 times the level of the bus driver. A level like 331 degrees suggests somebody who is profoundly intoxicated, likely near total incapacitation.
On a motorcycle?
On a motorcycle, which is already inherently less stable than a car. At that level of intoxication, he wasn't just a danger, he was. Frankly, it's a miracle if he didn't kill himself or someone else. It's an astonishingly high reading.
It really underscores the challenge the authorities face with drunk driving enforcement, doesn't it?
Immensely. It highlights the need for continued vigilance, strict penalties, and maybe more public awareness campaigns, although you'd think people would know better. Both men, Orellana, and Melara, are being processed for dangerous driving charges.
And beyond the DUIs, there were also some serious traffic accidents reported that same day.
Yes, unfortunately. In San Miguel, near the turnoff to Moncagua, a motorcyclist was injured. Reports say a pickup truck driver improperly invaded the motorcyclist's lane and caused the collision. Thankfully, emergency services were quick to respond and treated the injured rider at the scene.
And there was another quite dramatic-looking bus incident.
Yes, this one was in Sonsonate, near the El Conejo detour in the Coahuila area. It involved two buses.
A collision between two buses.
Apparently, yes. A Route 216 bus collided with a Route 205 bus. The impact was significant enough that the Route 216 bus actually ended up partially off the road, suspended over a ravine.
It sounds terrifying. Were there injuries?
Here's the incredibly fortunate part. Despite how bad it looked, reports say no injuries occurred in that incident. Sometimes you just get lucky.
Definitely a close call. Okay, we need to pause briefly here. Remember, if you want to help us to pay the platforms where this content is hosted and the materials of this podcast, or we invite you to a coffee, you can do it through the PayPal. The link, you will find it in the description of the content of this podcast. Or through your Satoshis of any wallet of cryptocurrencies, the QR Bitcoin, you will find it in the cover of this content. Send your contributions, which you believe convenient. That will be a lot of help. And on purpose of Bitcoin, have much care with your wallet of the government of El Salvador, Chivo Wallet. It is no longer possible to send funds to other wallets of Bitcoin. According to reports, much care with your money. Okay, and just to hammer that point home one more time before we move on, that warning about the Chivo Wallet, the report's saying you can no longer send Bitcoin out to other wallets. That's why we keep mentioning it. It's a live, critical issue impacting potentially anyone using the system right now.
Absolutely. The lack of clarity combined with the severity of the reported restriction means extreme caution is warranted. It fundamentally challenges that idea of financial freedom we discussed earlier.
Right. Okay, so moving away from those immediate hazards, both financial and physical, let's broaden our view a bit. Let's look at some bigger picture items. Economic ideas, development plans, and even global awards.
Sounds good. We can start with a major recognition in the field of economics. The Nobel Prize.
Who won the Nobel Prize in economics this year?
The prize was awarded jointly to three economists, Joel Mokyr, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt.
And what was their specific contribution that earned them the prize?
They were recognized for their work explaining innovative economic growth.
Innovative economic growth. That sounds important, but maybe a bit abstract. Can you unpack that a little? What kind of growth are we talking about?
Sure. Their work, particularly Aghion and Howitt's, is central to what's called endogenous growth theory. A key part of it focuses on the role of technological progress and something called creative destruction.
Creative destruction.
Yeah.
That sounds dramatic.
It is, in a way. It's an idea that was popularized way back by Joseph Schumpeter, but Aghion and Howitt really built sophisticated mathematical models around it. The core idea is that for an economy to truly progress and grow richer over the long term, it can't just stand still. New, better, more efficient technologies and industries have to constantly emerge.
Okay.
And in doing so, they often destroy or displace the older, less efficient ways of doing things. Think about how cars replaced horse-drawn carriages, or how streaming services are disrupting traditional television. That's creative destruction.
So progress requires breaking things, essentially, getting rid of the old to make way for the new.
In essence, yes. It suggests that long-run prosperity doesn't come from just maintaining the status quo, but from actively fostering an environment where innovation can challenge and ultimately replace established methods.
How does that relate to El Salvador's current situation, especially with things like the Bitcoin adoption?
Well, you could argue the Bitcoin adoption itself was intended as a massive act of creative destruction. The goal was, at least partly, to disrupt the old, slow, expensive systems for things like remittances, using this new digital technology.
Right, bypassing traditional banks.
Exactly. The work of Makir, Agyan, and Howitt provides the theoretical framework to understand why such disruptions are necessary for growth, but also why they need the right supporting institutions and policies to actually succeed and make people better off, rather than just causing chaos. It highlights the importance of managing that destructive yet creative process.
Interesting. So a prize for understanding how economies fundamentally change and advance. Now let's contrast that high-level economic theory with, well, something a bit more grounded in political commentary. There was a claim involving former President Trump and the other Nobel Prize, the Peace Prize.
Yes, a rather unusual anecdote surfaced. Trump made a statement about the person who won the Nobel Peace Prize this year. Now, separate reports identify the winner as Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, though Trump didn't explicitly name her in the quote we have.
Okay, so what did he claim she said or did?
He claimed that after winning, she called him. And according to Trump, she said, quote, "I accept this prize in your honor because you really deserve it. It was a kind gesture. I've been helping her all this time."
So he's essentially claiming she credited him for her Nobel Peace Prize win.
That's what the quote suggests. Whether the conversation happened exactly like that, or if it was more of a polite thank you that he interpreted this way, who knows? But he definitely used the occasion to imply his support was instrumental in her receiving this major international honor.
It certainly puts a political spin on what's usually seen as a more humanitarian award. It reinforces how interconnected global politics and these big awards can sometimes be.
Indeed. It's a reminder that behind the scenes of these major international recognitions, there are often complex webs of political relationships and influence.
Okay, let's bring it back to El Salvador and focus on concrete development initiatives happening domestically. What's going on with infrastructure and supporting the local economy?
Well, starting with infrastructure, particularly for city dwellers, there's continued focus on the Metrocable project.
The cable car system for San Salvador. What's the latest there?
The Vice Ministry of Transportation, the VMT, under Nelson Reyes, has been emphasizing its strategic importance. They see it as crucial for improving urban mobility, particularly the connection between Mexicanos and the historic center of San Salvador.
Why is that connection so important? And why a cable car?
Mexicanos is a densely populated area, and it sits sort of uphill from the main downtown core. This creates significant traffic bottlenecks and makes commutes difficult, especially for people relying on public transport navigating steep, congested roads.
So the Metrocable bypasses all that?
Exactly. A cable car system is often a great solution in areas with challenging terrain and high population density. It goes over the traffic, offering a potentially faster, more reliable, and more equitable way for people in Mexicanos to access jobs, services, and cultural sites in the historic center. It's a modern urban planning approach aimed at improving daily life.
Makes sense. What about direct support for businesses, especially smaller ones?
The focus there, according to Paul Steiner, the president of CONAMIP, the National Commission for Micro and Small Enterprises, is on leveraging culture. They're actively promoting and supporting things like art and design festivals.
So not just loans or grants, but creating platforms for visibility.
Precisely. The strategy seems to be about helping micro and small enterprises, MIPIS, tap into the creative economy. It's about providing market access, showcasing local talent, and turning Salvadoran art, design, and crafts into viable economic products, connecting culture with commerce.
Okay, and shifting gears slightly, there was also some positive news reported in the agricultural and public health sector, something about controlling a pest.
Yes, this sounds like a significant success story. There's been positive progress reported in controlling the screwworm, or gusano baranoder.
I've heard that it can be really devastating for livestock, right?
Extremely devastating. It causes horrible wounds in animals and can lead to major economic losses for farmers and ranchers. Controlling it is a big deal for the agricultural sector and animal welfare.
So what did they do that worked?
The reports credit the success to a specific, targeted strategy using 2 medications, ivermectin and dormectin. By systematically applying this treatment plan, they've apparently made major headway in controlling the screwworm population.
And this puts El Salvador ahead in the region.
That's the claim that this success positions El Salvador as a regional leader in tackling this particular threat. It demonstrates a capacity for effective, science-based public health and agricultural management. A definite win.
Good news there. And finally, on the development front, there was also some recognition for Salvadorans living abroad.
Yes, the government held an event specifically titled Salvadoran Talent Abroad, Innovation and Comprehensive Development.
What was the purpose of that event?
It was designed to formally acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of the Salvadoran diaspora. This is important because Salvadorans abroad contribute hugely, not just through the money they send home remittances, but also through their skills, knowledge, business connections, and investments.
So recognizing them as partners in development.
Exactly. Connecting back to that Nobel Prize discussion about innovation, the diaspora represents a massive pool of talent and experience that can fuel that innovative economic growth if engaged effectively. This event seems like a step towards strengthening those ties.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground today. From the potentially critical issues with the Chivo Wallet's functionality,
to dramatic international events clashes with police in the U.S., the claimed end of the war in the Middle East.
and then serious domestic public safety concerns here in El Salvador, like those extreme DUI cases, alongside positive news about economic theory, infrastructure plans, and successful pest control.
It's a lot to process from just a couple of days worth of news centering around October 13th. But as we synthesize it, a core tension keeps emerging, doesn't it?
What's the central conflict you see running through all this?
It's the contrast between the narrative and the reality. On one hand, you have official narratives and claims of progress, stability, and innovation. Think about the Nobel Prize recognizing economic innovation theory, the bold claim of peace brokered in the Middle East, the plans for modern infrastructure like the Metrocable, the successful screwworm strategy. These all paint a picture of advancement and control.
But then you have the counterpoints.
Exactly. Juxtaposed against those claims, you have the stark reality reported on the ground. The potential restriction on the Chivo Wallet fundamentally limiting financial freedom, directly contradicting the narrative of empowerment through Bitcoin. You have the violence and contested use of force by authorities in Chicago. You have the asymmetry in how peace is experienced in the Middle East. And you have the immediate dangerous reality of things like drivers operating vehicles at lethal levels of intoxication.
So it's claims of order versus the reality of chaos or control.
Something like that. It's the tension between the officially projected image of stability, innovation, and peacemaking, and the lived experience, which seems to involve restricted access, dangerous policing encounters, and significant everyday public safety hazards. The official story doesn't always match what people are actually dealing with.
So the key thing for you, listening to all this, is probably to keep that critical perspective. Always question if the official statements and plans line up with what's actually happening, especially when there's silence or ambiguity from authorities on really crucial changes, like with the Chivo Wallet.
Which brings us right back to where we started and to the final thought we want to leave you with today. It really centers on that Chivo Wallet situation because it's so fundamental.
Go ahead.
If a digital wallet backed by the government and presented as a cornerstone of the national economic strategy reportedly takes away your ability to freely move your funds, specifically to send your Bitcoin to any other wallet you choose, what does that tell you about your ownership of those digital assets?
Are you really in control?
That's the question. Are you truly the owner, with the autonomy that Bitcoin is supposed to represent? Or are you simply a user within a system where the ultimate control, the ability to move your assets freely, might actually rest with the entity managing the wallet, the government? This ambiguity, this question mark over true digital autonomy and financial control, that's the critical issue users are facing right now based on these reports. Something really important to think about.
With Chivo Wallet, the wallet of the government of El Salvador, they report that it is no longer possible to send funds to other wallets of Bitcoin. There's no explanation about that. Much care with your money. But your contributions, you can continue making them through other wallet QR Bitcoin to scan it. You'll find it only in the cover of this content, or through the PayPal the user. You will find it in the description. Your contributions, however minimal they are, help us to continue connected in this network and pay these platforms this content. Follow us, share, and comment. Thanks for listening to us. We are Noticias El Salvador SV. Share this content and recommend it to your acquaintances. Greetings to everyone.